Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show today. We're going to have a great show today, aren't we going to have a great show today? Today we have an interesting topic, and that is based on a story that I read, or not a story that I read, an article that I read at Alternate. And I think you'll find it kind of interesting what they came up with, and it had to do with, hey, there is an interesting way that we can actually just maybe get gun control in this country. And unfortunately, it is using one of our evils, one of the greatest evils in this country, to actually accomplish that. But guess what? It can be done. And the postulation made by this person, by this particular writer, actually makes some sense, folks. But before we get really into the show, I want to remind all of you that this is a call-in show, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I would love to hear from you guys. Whomever you are, I'd like to hear opinions. Remember, we don't bite here. We we have open discussion here. And one of the most important things that we do is we don't judge. So therefore, whatever it is that you have to say, we want to hear from you. Remember, again, it's a call-in show, 646-716-5812. I would love to hear from everybody that is listening to the show. Anyhow, what do you think about what's going on with Russia now? Is that where are we with this thing now? Do you think Trump is going to really get caught? Do you think Trump is really going down? What do you think? I personally don't think anything is going to happen. I think he's going to fulfill. I go back and forth. Now I'm into the modality where I'm thinking that he's going to fulfill his entire term. Some people still don't believe that's a possibility. Well, we'll see what goes on. Anyhow, the title of the show today. What is the title of the show? The title of the show today is Black and Brown People Join in Second Amendment Movement May Save America. Think about that. I mean, that sounds kind of corny. That sounds kind of interesting. But believe it or not, there is a possibility based on history that could just be the case. So anyhow, the subtitle of the show is, did I give the show a subtitle today? Actually, I'm sorry. The title of the show is actually Black and Brown People Asserting Their Second Amendment Right May Be Gun Control Answer. All right? The subtitle is Maybe One Good Thing Could Come Out of Racism, Gun Control. Interesting, isn't it? Anyhow, it continues to surprise me that America is not in revolt over the daily killings in America because of the availability of guns. Does the dubious freedom of to own guns justify the death of 35,000 plus people per year? In other words, for this stuff called supposedly freedom, Second Amendment rights, is it worth the lives of 35,000 people? Where does that thing called those pro-lifers come into this again? Don't they do things to try to mitigate the killings? Don't they do things to try to mitigate life? Anyhow, folks, would we tolerate over 100 jumbo jets crashing every year? Think about that. That is equivalent to over 35,000 people. 100 jumbo jets crashing every year. Would we support that? I don't think we would. Folks, before you continue, please remember, do share these programs based on the Facebook new algorithm. Unless you're showing appreciation for the show by sharing it, it won't end up in as many people's feeds as it did before. So I'm asking you, I'm imploring you, if you want to get good progressive information out there, if you want to get good progressive programming out there, if you want to get a counterbalance to what we have on the mainstream media, please remember to share all these shows. Not only My Politics Done Right, but TYTs and all the other progressive shows that are out there, mostly on the internet. In my case, both on the internet and on terrestrial radio. Please go ahead and share these shows. It is extraordinarily important if we are going to start building a base so that during the election time, we will develop the throughput that's going to be necessary. With all the bots that are going around, with all these other interferences in social media, we are going to need all these voices. Politics Done Right, TYT, Fitch, all these other guys are going to be of utmost necessity to get our message out in bits and pieces in every corner of this country. So again, please share these programs, because absent a progressive voice, we are run by the corporatocracy. Anyhow, continuing, would you tolerate over 100 jumbo jets crashing every year? You would not. The people killed in those jets would be a cross-section of America, just like the 35,000 people killed every year by guns, yet we tolerate it. So we're going to have the blog of the week that's going to kind of talk about that. But again, do remember, this is a call-in show, 646-716-5812. Trump, here's from the news feed. Interesting. Trump is dead last in the presidential survey this year. The result of, here it goes. The result of this ranking are quite similar to the 2014 ranking. Abraham Lincoln tops the list with 95.03 average, followed by George Washington with a 92.59, Franklin Delano Roosevelt with a 89.09, Teddy Roosevelt with a 81.39, Thomas Jefferson with a 79.54, Harry Truman with a 75.15, Dwight Eisenhower with a 75.43. This is the same order from last year. Okay, but here's a kicker. After these first 7 places, however, there are several significant changes from 2014. And here's the kicker. Barack Obama now occupies the 8th slot with a 71.13 rating, up 10 places from 2014. And he's followed by Ronald Reagan with a 69.24. Let me pause there before I continue. Can you believe the explosion that's going on in the right wing right now? Barack Obama just went over President Reagan in the presidential poll by several points. Can you believe that? Those guys are going to be wondering, how come the king of supply side economics went down to the guy who started to put a crack in supply side economics? Now, he didn't do as much as he should have. Well, let me not be as negative on that regards. He didn't do it because there was no way, with Blue Dog Democrats teaming up with Republicans, that we were going to get a single payer systems, or we were going to get any of these types of systems that make a true social democratic state. We weren't going to get that, in as much as we all know that is where his heart is. He's not so much different than El Señor, who is our guy, Bernie Sanders. Anyhow, continuing with the program. He is followed by Ronald Reagan with a 69.24. Oh, poor Ronnie. Ronnie is dipping. Anyhow, Lyndon Johnson at 69.06. Oh, my God. You mean Mr. Vietnam is almost as high as Mr. Supply Side Economics? Wow. Woodrow Wilson, 67.4. And James Madison, 64.48. Those are the top 10. Next comes Bill Clinton at number 14 with 64.25. Down 5 places from our previous study, followed by Adams. So Clinton is down. Let me tell you something. Clinton, a lot of Democrats love Clinton. They love the Clinton mystique, and they love all of that. Unfortunately, I never, while I like Clinton and while the economy exploded under Clinton, it was not, the reality is there was no real core to Clinton's ideology, other than triangulation, and triangulation meaning I cap together what I need to win. And do recall, Clinton never won the majority of the votes. He never did. Obama won not only a majority, but way more than a majority. People are going to say, well, it's a 3-way race. Well, Obama had other people running in the race as well. And not only that, with a three-way race with somebody that is sort of nuts, that person should not have gotten that vote, so much so that both Clinton and Bush the first time, and Clinton and I forgot who the other person, I think it was Dole the second time, how that came out. Anyhow, Jackson was 62.16. Andrew Jackson? Come on, folks. Trails of Tears? Okay. Who dropped 6 places to number 15? The middle third of the ranking is generally stable with the 2014 results, though Ulysses Grant has climbed to 18 up 7 places from 2014. The bottom third is also consistent with our previous survey ranking with 2 exceptions. First, George W. Bush has risen 5 places, 40.42, moving to the 30th spot. Okay, so I guess he's only 15 places from the bottom, but he's 30 places from the top in this ranking. Second, Donald J. Trump makes his ranking debut at the very bottom of the list. His average rating, 12.34. That's Donald Trump, 12.34. And you have to ask yourself, which are these guys who rank Donald Trump at all? Should he have received any ranking? Not even for passing a... People say, well, he had one success. He passed a tax cut bill. Yeah, but he passed a bill that's going to decimate the economy and decimate the poor and decimate many. I guess we won't know that until after the election, but folks, that's why we need to support the Politics Done Right on other stations, the progressive stations, so that we can start cauterizing in people's mind that what people are trying to promote as a success for Donald Trump in passing a tax bill is really not a success at all. It is actually the beginning of the further destruction of what Ronald Reagan, George H. Well, I give George H. Walker Bush a pass, and I give Bill Clinton a pass just because George Bush did a little tax raise to save the nation, and so did George H. W. Bush, gave a tax increase to save the nation. George W. Bush, I'm sorry, George. No, not you. And then, of course, we had Barack Obama, who really tried his best, even having to fight both the Blue Dog Democrats and, meaning establishment Democrats, and otherwise. A lot of people like to call Obama an establishment Democrat. He's not an establishment Democrat. Even when he ran in the election, remember this, folks, he didn't use particularly the DNC. He created his own program to go ahead and win the elections. He realized that the discord, the disorganization and malaise within the DNC. Anyhow, continuing, bringing up the lower end, we have James Buchanan with a 15.09, which is higher than Trump, who previously occupied the lowest rank. William Henry Harrison at 19.02, Franklin Pierce 23.25, Andrew Johnson at 24.91, Warren Harding at 25.26, and Millard Fillmore 27.71. Also near the bottom. But the person that holds the worst position as president is El Señor Donald Trump, officially by the historians. Folks, again, this is a call-in show, 646-716-5812. Again, that is 646-716-5812. Please give us a call. Share these programs again because we're constantly getting new people in. So that's why I remind you, share all these programs. It is essential for us to get the progressive message out by sharing these programs. And before I go ahead, remember on the 20th of February, mañana comenzamos con el voto. Tomorrow we start the voting in Texas. So please, folks, do remember it is time to vote. Go vote. If I made a mistake with the dates, I think it is tomorrow. You guys, somebody can correct me, but it is essential here in Texas that you go vote. It is essential that you go vote the most winnable progressive that is out there. Go ahead and make sure that we will have changes. So go out there and vote in Texas. It will be beginning, I believe, tomorrow for sure. It's a shame. I'm a precinct chair. I should be telling you that definitively, but there are so many other things that we have going on as well. And I repeat, folks, please remember to share these shows. Second story from our newsreel, and I'm only doing 2 today. According to Al Jazeera, dozens of young people and their families have taken their demands for stricter gun control laws to the White House less than a week after a school shooting killed 17 people in the U.S. state of Florida. About 50% held signs that said enough is enough and change gun laws or change Congress. I'd like to have both, change the gun laws and change Congress, at a protest in Washington, D.C. on Monday. The rally comes amid a growing movement calling on U.S. President Donald Trump and other lawmakers to strengthen U.S. gun laws in the wake of one of the deadliest school shootings in the country's history. I think it's after Sandy Hook and after the one in Virginia. But imagine this was actually worse, if I recall, than Columbine. So, folks, it is imperative that we do what we have to do. And do remember, in Texas, go vote. Now, what I think I need to do before I go to the blog of the week is update here and make sure that I can find out what our folks on Facebook are saying. And Facebook friends, I'm coming to you in a very little minute so that I can get your voices out there. But not only do I like your voices not only do I love to hear your voices on this stuff here, on what do we call this stuff here, on Facebook, but I'd love to hear your voices, period. I'd love for you to actually call into the show. And that call-in number, folks, is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. We'll be talking about quite a few things. Would you believe that my pad just asked me to log in again? That doesn't make any sense. So it seems like I'm going to have to go out here and read from something that is difficult to read from. Okay, we have in the show right now, we have, let's see, Alexis Donadel Nujari, excellent commentary. That is much well appreciated. We also have Michael Rudwin speaking to Ron Cole. In the presidential election of 1982, Bill Clinton gained 44.509%, 44 million votes, which was 43% of the vote, of the popular vote. Let's see, hardly a majority to win the second term in office. In 1996, President Clinton won 47 million, 49.2% of the votes. This with a higher percentage, although still below 50%. So, I mean, I guess that came from somebody probably challenging what I said about El Senor Clinton. It is important that we know these things. Clinton was not, So, I mean, I guess that came from somebody probably challenging what I said about El Senor Clinton. I guess we're on some sort of a delay. That didn't realize that Facebook was on a slight few seconds delay. But anyhow, folks, yes, Clinton, there's a mystique that that is what narrative does for you, right? If you are able to create a good narrative, you can have people believe in just about anything. And the narrative has always been that Clinton was this great democratic leader. He was a good leader. I don't want to take that away from him at all. He was a good democratic leader. But he was not an exceptional democratic leader in the same vein that we look at the Barack Obamas or even Johnson, right? It wasn't the case. A lot of people would like to make that the case. It was never the case. But the narrative has always been there. And as you can see, guys, I'm still trying to get all together with a login again. For some reason, Facebook logged us out. And when that happens, it means you have to go through the whole scenario again. I don't know if we sort of got hacked or not. But while I'm figuring all this out, I'd like to remind all of you guys to go ahead and do two things for me. Share. That's one of the things that I'd like you to do. The second thing I'd like to remind you all to do is please always remember to go to our website, because the algorithm for Facebook has changed, and it makes it difficult for all our news programs to show up in the news feed. That's not our doing. That is Facebook's doing. Why did they do that? Well, we can't make absolute pronouncements, but what we can say is we think it has to do with two things, of course, and that is the corporatocracy. They're going to make the money however they can make the money. And we have a strong suspicion that that is exactly what is occurring right now. But anyhow, getting back to the subject at hand, as soon as we can get back control of our thing here, we are going to go to the blog of the week. So I better get started with the blog of the week.
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, the blog of the week, titled Black and Brown People Joining Second Amendment Movement May Save America Yet. Here it goes. When black and brown people talk about open carry and the Second Amendment, they do so knowing that for that right, they are not afforded the same privilege when found with a gun, legal or otherwise. Philando Castile comes to mind, a young black man legally carrying a gun, murdered by a Minnesota police officer. As what is more the norm, the justice system acquitted that same officer. There are two distinct reactions to people carrying guns from both cops and citizens in this country. And when I wrote that in this part here, I didn't give an example. I didn't give the specific example, but I have a link to an example that I blogged about. So please remember to go to the blog of the week and check that example out. It was a great. It was based on a great piece written by Vian at Daily Kos. Anyhow, there is an irrational fear of armed people of color, even as most of the encounters with armed killers that murder random people are not people of color. Kali Holloway wrote an article at Alternet with a provocative title. Want to see gun control enacted? Support an article, or rather support a movement to arm black folks en masse. That should give everyone a pause. The article is much more in depth than the title suggests. So you should read it in its entirety. And I read the entire article. It's a darn good article. And I'd like you to read it because it's well annotated. It has all the listings. It has all the laws that they're speaking about. It was a very good article. Holloway first details the long-lasting issues that were selectively framed by race to get a change that otherwise would not have happened. I want you to listen to this, good folks, because this analysis here is impeccable. This analysis here is impeccable. How folks have used race in this country to screw everybody. This is, as you all know, and for those who are just checking in, I'm not the racial guy, the race baiting, none of that applies here. In fact, I take stances that sometimes upset just about everybody because I'm very consistent in talking about race being a social construct and also making it clear that as far as I believe, deep in my heart, I believe everybody basically have the same internal thinking in a lot of these items, but because of societal pressures, they react differently. I'm not talking about, to some extent, certain types of privileges. I mean, we have all types of privileges, even privileges within races, privileges, intra-privilege race, intra-race privileges, inter-race privileges, all that kind of stuff I understand. What folks have to understand is that the distinction between that and supremacy and white supremacy. And it is white supremacy that has always been used. They have used race, using white supremacy to screw not only black folk, Chinese folk, Asian folk, white folk. It has been used to maintain a select few in power. That is the reason I am always not racial. In as much of what I say, understand that where it's coming from, it is coming from somebody who simply accepts that race is a social construct whose back we have to break, and race is a social construct that the powers, the plutocracy, the corporatocracy has been using for a very long time to not only screw people of color. People of color just happen to be a scapegoat because you control a group and you have another group against that other group. They don't look in the mirror. They don't look at where the problem is really coming from. And then they screw you as well. So it is imperative that you understand where I'm coming from when you're reading my stuff whenever I decide to speak about race, because I've always told people this, and I'm going to repeat it here before I continue the blog of the week. And that is, when I started blogging, I never discussed race, because as a black man, as a Latino man, as a Caribbean man, the last thing I wanted to be judged at is black, Latino, Caribbean blogger. I wanted to be a blogger, period, punto final. Reason why? Because I want to speak on every issue, because I'm qualified to speak on all these issues from which I speak. And when one has been labeled a black journalist, a black blogger, a black whatever, a Latino blogger, a Latino journalist, an Asian blogger, an Asian, journalists, what you see, and you can see it on TV right now. You see that the only time these people get a chance to be on camera, given their expertise, is if they have an issue on Asian issue, on black issues, on Latino issues. But here's the kicker. As a black man, there are probably a hell of a lot more white folk that are much more competent to speak about black American issues than me as someone coming from Panama speaking on black American issues. That is the stupidity of what the race baiting, race kind of thing does in this country. So I just wanted to put that in, because for those that are listening to me, it is imperative that they know they're listening to this stuff abstractly and not from someone with some racial bias. All right, so continuing. Holloway, the author of the article, Holloway first details the long-lasting issues that were selectively framed by race to get a change that otherwise would not have happened. In other words, the plutocracy wanted these things effected. The people running government who were put there by the plutocracy wanted to get these laws changed. They couldn't get it changed because it wasn't popular. So then how do you do it? Here it is. Ending mass shootings might seem like a hopeless cause in light of all of this, but that kind of thinking ignores the historic infallibility of racism to move American political mountains. The shift in the public face of poverty from white to black helped take us from the New Deal to the deconstruction of the welfare state. I want to explain that for those people. You know, we have a lot of millennial listeners as well, and I want to explain this to them. When he talks about, I want to repeat that line because this is very, very important. The shift in the public face of poverty from white to black helped take us from the New Deal to the destruction of the welfare state. We have to remember the welfare state really started with Roosevelt, the New Deal, and continued with Johnson, war against the poor, and all these types of topics. But what the plutocrats did, who elected that new government, did, is they wanted to find a way that they could deconstruct helping people, because it costs money. It means more taxes for some people. So how do you deconstruct that? You can't say, I'm going to take it away, because if you take it away from white people, you're taking it away from your base. So you have to find a way to take it away from white people in such a manner that it seems like it is mostly hurting the other, the people of color. So in order to get welfare reform, what happened is you go ahead and you create the stories as far as most of the people getting welfare are black folk or Latino folks or all those minorities that are getting welfare. And then you change the argument and you say, and all you hard-working white people out there, why is it that you're willing to take care of all those loafers, those lazy people? That was the narrative. It's not the truth. And then they show you a few vagabonds, a few black folk on the street that look like they're doing absolutely nothing. They're just floating around. And then they show you a few of them that are robbing. And they show you a few. I mean, the exceptions, not the rule. They're showing you the exceptions, not the rule. And that's what they sell. And that's what you get on TV. And before I continue with the blog, I want to give an example of why all of this is dangerous. I don't know if you guys saw the blog that I wrote about what that person did. The white woman who was a producer on TV, a news producer on TV, who started to use the N-word and all of this against people in her neighborhood. So what happened? Everybody looked at that story as a sensational story. Oh, we have her on tape saying the N-word and all that good stuff. That was the least of my concerns. The least of my concerns was that woman was calling somebody, calling out her white neighbor for for his son dating a black woman. That was the least of my concerns. I don't care about that. The concern here was that this was a producer in a TV station who decides what's going to be on the news that night. What do you think happens when people talk about we have to make sure that the news stations are integrated, we have to make sure that these places reflect the entire society? These are the reasons why. Because look, that woman is in that studio. She's the one framing the message, framing the news that all Americans are going to see. Why am I never angered by or angry at the vast majority of Americans? Because I know the vast majority of Americans are framed by those who have the power to give them the message. Why is it that there's a politics done right? Why is it that there's all these other progressive stations out there needed to counteract what's going on in the mainstream media, to frame what you are supposed to believe so that we don't get the policies that we want or we need to get? I went off on a tangent here, but I think this was a perfect example here to use as to how race has been played, not to screw people of color, but to screw all of us. All of us are in the same boat. We can't screw one piece and not screw the other. We're all in the same boat. Okay, let me read that sentence over and continue on, and I'm going to be a little less long-winded, but I really hope that you got that. If you don't, I'm going to read the notes later on and see if we can kind of expand on that. But anyhow, repeating, the shift in the public face of poverty from white to black helped make us from the New Deal to the destruction of the welfare state. Conversely, as drug addiction has gone from being an inner city read black to a suburban read white problem, okay? As it became a white problem, the state has transformed from carceral to compassionate. Have you noticed when we were speaking about crack cocaine, people went to jail because it made them violent and it killed people, and they had to rob to actually pay for their vice. Same applies for these drugs. They rob to get these drugs. They break into stores to get these drugs. They kill their mother and their father to get these drugs. The same things that they did for crack, they did for these drugs. But because this is now a suburban drug issue, or rather, I shouldn't say a suburban drug issue because it's a countrywide issue, but because it also affects the suburban community, it is now thought of as a medical problem, and they're asking for monies in the budget to help with this crisis, but somehow there was never money in there to solve the crack problem. Folks, this is what we're talking about here, okay? Now think about that. These are all the kind of problems. You know, the reason why America is so medicated is because Americans are hurting, okay? The reason it was mostly minorities doing crack is because crack was cheap and they were hurting. They lived with the shoes of the plutocracy on their neck more so than any other society. And that crack and all these things, for those who wanted some relief, it was alcohol, it was crack. For those in the middle class today that are falling out of the middle class, and remember, they have extracted most that they can extract from in the aggregate. They've extracted most that they can extract from the people of color. Now it's your turn. And they're doing it. And the same behavior that these other communities exerted, or the same example of the behaviors that they had, is the same behavior that we have in these communities now that are in the crack epidemic. It just shows you all these things are socio-economic. We are talking about social constructs as opposed to anything else. These are important concepts, my friends. These are important concepts. Okay, seems like I just had a tablet malfunction again, but it seems like we're getting back up there, so I can continue reading that thing. Anyway, so as drug addiction has gone from being an inner city read black to a suburban read white problem, the state has transformed from carceral to compassionate, a movement both visible and vocal to arm black Americans en masse would fire up GOP political will toward gun control, and probably at speeds currently unimaginable. Second Amendment hardliners often engage in bad faith references to America's racist gun control history at convenient moments, namely when trying to convince wary black folks who statistically are overwhelmingly pro-gun control to join the chorus calling for unfettered gun access. There are too many reasons to question their sudden commitment to anti-racism in those moments. That said, there is historic precedence for the mere idea of black gun possession leading directly to white American effort at gun control. Holloway then points out the many times government installed different levels of gun control than when the others were arming themselves. Oh, yeah. Here are all the times when gun controls were instituted. These policies even predated the country's official nationhood. The splinters Daniel Rivero points to the first gun control law passed in Virginia in 1640, which explicitly banned black people from owning guns, even if they were not slaves. The 1857 Dred Scott decision prohibited blacks from becoming American citizens, in part because citizenship would confer the right to keep and carry arms, inevitably producing discontent and insubordination and endangering the peace and safety of the state. Post-Civil War, black codes were adopted throughout much of the South, making gun ownership by freed blacks illegal. The Atlantic notes that to enforce the gun ban, white men riding in posses began terrorizing black communities. The most infamous of these disarmament posses, of course, was, we all know who, KKK, El Ku Klux Klan. Martin Luther King, who received endless death threats and was a target of a house bombing in 1956, applied for an open carry permit but was denied by Montgomery, Alabama's racist police force. When the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, in accordance with the California law, began openly carrying weapons to patrol Oakland neighborhoods, guess what happened? The state legislature quickly crafted, and guess who signed it? El Señor Governor Ronald Reagan quickly signed the 1967 Mulford Act ending public carry. On the heels of race riots, Congress Omnibus Crime Control and Safety Streets Act 1968, followed by the Gun Control Act of 1968, which Georgetown historian Adam Winkler notes included a provision to restrict Saturday night specials, the cheap, easily available guns often used by black youth. The legislation was the first federal gun law in nearly 3 decades and proved lawmakers would rather institute widespread gun control measures than potentially have a widely armed black populace. So, folks, what does all that say? All that says, Russia exploited America's long-lived racism. They likely put the worst president America has ever had by using the weakness against us, by using our weakness, racism, against us. In a somewhat conniving manner, just maybe, black and brown people at large can save the country from the carnage by arming themselves in a very public way and start asserting their Second Amendment rights, as vociferous as those right-wingers who think the privilege is only theirs, if not in law, in practice. So think about that. Think about that. Folks, telephone number 646-716-5812. I'd love to hear from you, but in the interim, let me see if I can get to Facebook now, which has been given me for all, how would I say what Facebook has been giving me? Facebook has been giving me hell today. I don't know why it is that it just won't, you know how they say, it just, remember that thing from that guy, it just won't let me in? Well, at this point, it just won't let me in, and we have to figure out why it just won't let me in, so I'll have to go do it the next best way that I can. Let's see if I can get some of these things read, and forgive me if I can't read them all. Let's go to, okay, we have in the house, we have, that looks like Michael Rudwin. Let's see what it says here. Let me go ahead and expand that some. Let's go. All right, bear with me, folks. Please, folks, do remember to continue to share. I need you to continue sharing. We have Judith Holmes. Judith Holmes says, Norman Bunk, your statement about the Clinton is not accurate. Norman Bunk said, you have succeeded. I see you as a clear and visionary voice and great teacher. Whoa. Your race and national origin simply add. Well, thank you, sir. The other one, Michael Rudem, as it comes to crime, economics plays a larger role than race. I just want to kind of edit what you just said there. You said economic plays a larger role than race. My contention is that race plays no role at all. I mean, genetically speaking, I think it's all about environment. It's all about everything except race. Because I mean, I want to say something, and I want all my listeners to take this in the right context that I'm going to say it, right? A lot of folks like to operate under the tenet that some races are more violent than others. They like to operate under that tenet. And they give you all the necessary visual cues. And since I don't have the pad to test here, folks, I'm going to be going on. Well, let me see if I can do this by the phone and see if it'll work for us on the phone. But let me tell this story that I really want to tell here. And the number is 646-716-5812. I can go talking forever. And I have a lot to say. But I'll much like to have more than a soliloquy. You're a lot of you online, but I'd love to have more than a soliloquy to talk about. But the idea is this. We have been given a narrative, all Americans, right? And this doesn't only go for white Americans. This also go for black Americans. I remember Jesse Jackson's once saying, hell, if I saw two of those black boys with their pants hanging down, walking down the street, I would walk on the other side too. That was Jesse Jackson who said that. I remember when he said that. And a lot of the context for a whole lot of these things come from what we've seen advertised on TV, what we've seen on the news. I remember going to China as an engineer for a project that I was doing, and going to the park and having the kids trying to rub on me, and the engineers, the only thing they could ask me about was Michael Jordan or I think Charles Barkley, and other than that, all they knew about folks that looked like me was Superfly. So you don't understand the thinking methodology until you understand how things happen. And what I'm trying to say is that the way news is formed, the way that people put messages out there, the way your 5 o'clock and your 6 o'clock news shows. I ask you all to go to your 5 and 6 o'clock news and watch it. Most of the people committing crimes that you will see on the 6 o'clock news are going to be people of color. The second thing I'm going to ask you to do is go look up on the court records all the people that were arrested for violent crimes on that day. And tell me the difference between what you see and what is actually what you saw on TV. And that is the important thing here. Narrative is everything. Remember that woman I spoke to you about who used all the racial epithets out there in Florida was a news producer. How would you like to be the one getting the news from this woman? Your narrative would be completely different from what you think it should be. All right, let me see. It looks like I can pull it up on the phone. So let's go ahead and get some more. Bruce Pollard says, I believe the students can make a difference. I hope they can make a difference. If they're 18, I think they'll get scared because it'll finally bring out a group that doesn't necessarily vote by its numbers. Millennials are going to make up 74 million people in this economy, in this country. They're going to be the biggest voting bloc. And whoever controls whoever has satisfactions from the millennials, they will begin winning elections. Let's see. Michael Rudin, the value of the nation can be measured by how well it treats the worst off among its citizens. Absolutely so. Worse off its citizens. Concentrating poverty into slums will only perpetuate the desperation that breeds crime. If there's a neighborhood that's struggling, the best thing our nation can do is invest there. First, make sure that people have at least basic minimum standard of living befitting our citizens, then build whatever public works projects that they need to kickstart an industry or create recreation centers that bring tourism. Helping people out there out of poverty shouldn't be this hard. Like, link to Jimmy Dore's show talking about Chicago. The Jimmy Dore show, I've heard of it before. The Jimmy Dore show, folks, check it out. Now, I want to add to that, and he's so right. If you go to Appalachia has the same problems that the middle of the ghetto has, the middle of the barrios have. I'm talking about the bad ghettos, the bad barrios. They have the same problems. You know why you don't hear about it? You remember that producer that I was telling you about? It's not in their interest to tell you about it. If we had news that was really balanced, Fox News love to say we have news that is fair and balanced. If we had fair and balanced news, we would really learn that we're all in the same boat, and we would then be able to start pulling together to work as a team. But because we don't have that, well, señores y señoras, that is the reason things are the way they are. Okay, Judith Holmes says, reload the page? Yes, Judith, reload the page. I've tried reloading the page. Let's see what else I have here from people. I have 20-something messages, and I can't get to all of them, and I have no idea why. This is quite interesting. But so as I was saying before, my friends, as it turns out, we really have to be careful as far as what we're listening to, what we're looking at. The subject at hand today was, well, how do we get gun control? Notice that I said in the blog piece that it was what I said was pretty darn conniving. And why do I say conniving? It is conniving because it is sad that I am saying, just maybe for us to save us all from these mass killings, that we must once again utilize something that we shouldn't want to utilize. And that is a carnal, racist instinct between a large enough part of this population that just seeing that a few black folk may start to arm themselves will put the fear in them in such a manner that they believe now, okay, we really should have gun laws. We really then should have gun laws. Folks, telephone number 646-716-5812. Quite a few of you watching. Is it really that you don't want to talk? You're concerned about talking? You're scared to talk? We are very easy to talk to. Very easy to talk to. 646-716-5812. 646-716-5812. We don't have any more on this particular subject. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Well, I think we're going to talk about it tomorrow, but every now and then I'll get an email in my box that says, okay, Egberto, what we really should be talking about is something else. And given that I've always said that this is your show, if you guys come up with a better idea, it is going to be what you say. And by the way, I have a good friend here in the news feed, Bruce Pollard. Sometimes he's doing some good research on a particular subject that when he's good and ready will be on the program for us to discuss as well. And I think this is a time that I should put in this offer here to all our listeners, all our progressives. And it doesn't even have to be a progressive. It could be a conservative. I'd love to bring a conservative either in the studio or via video to have a conversation. We can sit down and talk. And you can go at me as hard as you can, as hard as you will, as hard as you think you can. I'd love to have you, conservative or otherwise. But specifically and mainly for progressives, let me tell you guys something. If you have a subject that you are really into, if you have a subject that you want to get out there and you think Americans need to hear about it, you don't only have to write up something and send it to me and say, hey, why don't you cover it? You can come and be a part of the show and you cover it. Because that is what I want Ultimate Politics Done Right to be all about. That it's not just my show, but it is our show because, as I've always preached, people out there have a lot to say. There's a whole lot of intelligent people, and guess what? Most of them are not in Congress. Most of them are the ones that are listening to this show. Most of them are the ones that are doing real things for society. Most of those guys in Congress are not the thinkers. They're the puppets run by the plutocracy. They're puppeteers. And you are the ones, when you sit down and pull your hair out, in my case, pull your scab out, asking what's next, then, folks, you know what we're talking about. It seems like we have a call. Let's go. 716. Come on in, 716. 716, you're on the air. Okay, 716, I can't hear you. Maybe you have your mute on. Okay, I don't know why I can't hear you today. 716, are you there? All right, I'll leave your mic open and see if maybe at some time it is that you have something on your mic that's not working. I don't think it does because we did a little test beforehand and we worked just fine. I tell you what, I'm going to hang your phone up and ask you to call back. And yeah, and what I'm going to do also is recycle. I'm going to recycle Blog Talk Radio as we speak. So call back in about 2 minutes while I recycle this guy. But I don't think it is our Blog Talk Radio. But you never know. I am willing to accept responsibility. But anyhow, folks, as I was mentioning before, and as I recycle our radio network here, I want to tell you that this is in fact your show. And you can, if you have an important topic that you want to talk about, I want you to know that we are here to do exactly that. You're probably going to get your, if Bruce is still listening, he'll probably be one of the first ones that come into the studio with a topic true to his heart that he wants to put out there, and that is what we want this show to be altogether. Okay, I think you can call in now. Let's see if you're able to call in, my friend. And if not, I wouldn't know exactly what the reason would be. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Can't get the video voice to play. Sorry, I missed you. That's Judith Home. I'm so sorry that I missed you as well. What else do we have here? Let's see if I can bring in 716 now. 716, I'm trying again. Are you there? I haven't a clue why we won't hear or why we aren't hearing you, 716. Let me see if I can figure that out. That looks like it's all our mixers are they're running fine, but I still cannot hear you. I will have to run a test after the show. I'm so sorry, 716. I'm so sorry that we were unable to get that connection through, but it bugs me that we couldn't. Let me see. Okay. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to you, but we'll get to you at the next time. Okay. So going back to this subject of hand, we're coming close to the end of the show. And what I want to tell you guys is as follows. Like I was mentioning, you're back again. Let's see if you'll come in this time. All right. Let's see. Okay. I have you on. Let's see if you can come in. Still nothing. That is very, very interesting. Well, if you could go into type, then we should be able to say something. I just sent. Yeah, if you can go in and type, I'll read whatever it is that you type in the Facebook page. I'm so sorry about that. Anyhow, we're coming close to the end of the show, and I want to give a few pointers. Tomorrow, Bill Gates went on the air over the weekend, and he said that he's a billionaire, of course, and he admitted that billionaires were not paying enough taxes. And when asked if he was willing to pay more taxes, he was told that let's see, I'll try him one more time. You called in again. Here you are, sir. I'm trying you again. Can we hear you now? And can we hear you now? And we still can't hear you. I don't know why we can't hear you. I'm so sorry. But anyhow, Bill Gates said that he does believe that the rich should pay more taxes. Unfortunately, I made some comments in the thread, and when I write the blog for that one, I'll put that in. We are so indoctrinated. There was one woman in the blog that said, what do you expect him to do? At least he's a great donor. He's giving away a lot of the money. What I try to tell people, and by the way, Bill Gates is a good guy. He's just playing the system the way it was designed. All right? So I don't want to disparage what he did, because everything that Bill Gates did was legal as far as we know. He had huge appreciation in his stock, and with that, he made a lot of money. The question is, who did that appreciation really belong to? And that is what we're going to discuss tomorrow, assuming we don't change the topic based on what you guys want. We're going to talk about why it is that I believe there is no billionaire worth the billions that they have. and that as a society, we have to get away from the type of economy that we have that allows folks to build up a huge amount of assets, huge amount of capital, without having any real investment in work or intellect. Notice I said work or intellect. When it comes to Bill Gates, the reason I like to use the word intellect a lot is his company is a company based on a whole lot of intellect, not a whole lot of physical capital, if you will. And I attest that it's not his intellect that made him the billions that he's worth. Okay, now on another subject, and then we'll be closing out the show. As you know, this is a political show. We are both on terrestrial radio as well as online. What I have to remind folks is that all of us do these things on a volunteer basis, and we used to do it mostly from ads coming over the internet from our websites, from our blog sites, etc. There's been many changes made to many changes made to Facebook, many changes made to the Google search, which means two things has happened. Your traffic has fallen quite a bit, as well as your the pricing that they give you for advertising. So a lot of things that we could just do and throw it out there without asking for support, we did. It's becoming a different time right now. So what many of us are asking, if you take a look at Talking Points memo and a lot of these other progressive sites who are getting slaughtered, not only by the search engines, but by the Facebook new algorithm, they're starting to tell their customers, look, if you really want to keep these types of programming viable, it is essential that you find a way to support. So what we've done is we've teamed up with Patreon.com. Patreon.com is sort of an intellectual property type organization that collect, how should I say it, subscriptions. The good thing about the way they run is this is really micro pennies, right? Because we're not talking about big subscriptions or anything. It's whatever it is that you want to help with keeping these programs on. So I'm asking you to go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. And, help do your part as far as keeping progressive radio, progressive programs, progressive sites on air. And that is patreon.com, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Now, let me tell you, Politics Done Right does its part. We are patrons for Daily Coast. We're patrons for Op-Ed News. We're patrons for Democratic Underground. So we're asking folks to be patrons of Politics Done Right, and maybe a couple others as well. And you can be a patron for as little as $1 a month. As little as $1. So go ahead and go to that site, and I'm asking you to support and ensure that progressive programming can continue. We offer a service. A lot of times we're right there on the line, making sure that you don't only hear the news from a plutocrat's point of view, but from a point of view that you respect from folks that you respect. So thank you so kindly for listening to the program today, folks. Please be a supporter of the program, and you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. And more importantly, folks, please remember to share, and encourage others, not only to share, but encourage others to support the program through Patreon. I have the list there. I'll also periodically put in more asks out there. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.